Hello and welcome to the Alliance of Independent Authors member Q&A for October 2019. I'm Orna Ross, Director of ALLi, and I'm here with the wonderful Michael Ronn, who is our partner liaison and our US ambassador. Hi, Michael.
Hi, Orna. Happy October.
October already, can you believe it? 2 more
Yep.
months in this quarter and this year is done.
Yep. The pumpkins are out. I took my daughter pumpkin painting yesterday, and it's starting to get cold and rainy, and I'm loving it.
I like this time of year, I have to say. Before it goes fully into the winter, it's a lovely time, very colourful and alive. So yay, we have lots of member questions for you. This is the show in which we invite our members to submit questions publicly so that we can answer them and help lots more members and followers besides those people themselves. Because if you've got a question about self-publishing, chances are somebody else has that same question and is going through that same stage in the process too. So it's actually very helpful for you to submit your question to us, because not only do you get a direct answer, but also it helps lots of other indie authors too. So what have you got for us today, Michael?
All right. Our first question is from Rainey, and she asks, does ALLi have any resources for an author who is soon to do her first author visit at a preschool and a little unsure of all that's required? So sounds like a children's book author. Do we have any resources?
Yes. Well, we have a living, breathing, wonderful resource in the shape of Karen Inglis, who is our children's advisor. So children's publishing is unique. It's quite different to the general run of publishing, say, adult fiction or nonfiction. And there are lots of different things that you need to do. And one of the things that's very big for children's authors is school visits. And Karen is somebody who, through school visits, has sold thousands of books. And you will hear people saying that self-publishing does not work for children's authors, but it absolutely does. And in fact, it is probably the only way that a children's author can make some money. Because if you are actually selling those books directly into schools and into libraries and into preschools and nurseries, creches and so on, you're getting the income directly to you as the author. Whereas when it goes through the long publishing chain of retailer, wholesaler and so on, by the time it comes back to the children's author, though you've been doing all the work of marketing, you're not actually seeing a lot of the return from that. So our advice would be that you get in touch with Karen, and we will get you Karen's email so that you can do that directly, but also you'll find her on the member forum. And if you were to put your question specifically about preschool visits, because I think that's really interesting, and I think it's quite an unexplored territory for us. It's not something we've gone into in great detail, and we would love to, in fact, build up our resources. But she will certainly be able to help you in terms of how you approach a school or creche or nursery, preschool, whatever. You know, how you actually get people on side, how you make sure that the visit is worthwhile for you, how you prepare for it creatively and commercially. Karen will be able to help you with all of that. And we might, I think, should do a blog post specifically on this topic, because I think it's something, as I said at the beginning, that other people who are writing for this group are going to be interested in. I don't know if you're aware of any resources outside of ALLi, Michael.
No, I'm not.
No.
I know Joanna Penn has had people on the Creative Pen that have been children's book authors. So that might be another place to check as well. I'm sure Joanna probably has a ton of resources on her site too.
Joanna has resources on pretty much everything, so always worth checking out the creativepen.com. And I know Karen has been on her show, and but I do think this is an underexplored area of self-publishing. It's something we'd like to work with you on to actually help develop it and get some answers, and maybe put together one of our downloadable guides to school visits and preschool visits. So yeah, let's work on that one.
All right. Thank you, Rainey, for your question. Now, our next question is from member Michelle. This is a long question. She's got a pretty long story here, so I'm going to break this into a few chunks. All right. So Michelle originally was published by an imprint publisher. So I don't know if this was one of the big five or if it was a smaller publisher. They basically took care of the publishing of the book. But unfortunately, the production of the book was riddled with errors, and the publisher, I guess they didn't do a good job. And so the author and the publisher got together and said, okay, we're going to withdraw the book from the market. So she terminated her contract. They went their separate ways. And so now she's in a position where she wants to rewrite the novel and go the self-publishing route. But her problem is that the original book that was originally published is still showing up on Amazon and Goodreads, and they won't remove the book. The first question, there's a couple questions here, but the first question is, can you have Amazon remove an old edition of a book?
The short answer is no. So in very, very, very exceptional circumstances, but not circumstances like yours, because it's pretty common, to be honest. So the short answer is no. The other part of that answer that I would say, though, is don't worry too much about it. Books being available, just, sitting there, you're very aware of that book as the author, but almost nobody is aware of that book unless some marketing is going on. So the fact that it's there, available through used sellers, the chances of somebody actually buying it are slim. And particularly when you get your new edition up and running, that's the one that people are going to see. That's the one that's going to be front of house, if you like. So if you think of all the books that are out there in the world now, think of an iceberg. And, down at the bottom of that iceberg is the nether regions of Amazon and Smashwords and et cetera, not a very pretty place. And then as you rise up through the iceberg, it's only at the top, really, that books are visible. So a book just being available online is not, you just don't need to worry about it, I would say. Just carry on with the job of getting it back into print and ebook and hopefully audiobook too.
I think that's going to be a new phrase, the nether regions of Amazon. I couldn't let you get away with that. I agree with that. Another thing about this too is the more books you have, the further you will push that original book down. So let me give you a perfect example. So I had a book, my first year of publishing. It was a book called Moderation Online, or it was originally called Eaton. It was called Season 1, and it didn't do very well. It had not good cover. And so I tried to pull it from the market and republish it. But that original book is still up there. And if you search for me and you go down far enough on the search results, you'll see this cover with this giant man broccoli on the front cover, and I got a lot of flack for that cover. It just wasn't very effective. And there's nothing I can do about it. For the rest of my career, that cover is going to show up on my search results. It's going to show up when you look for me on Google. But at the end of the day, readers are going to look for the most popular books, right? So they're not going to look at a book that's unavailable. It's almost going to be invisible to them the more books you have. So focus your efforts and your energy on getting reviews and making sure that your newer books are selling, so that those are the ones that rise to the top of your search results. And I think you'll be fine. It definitely does sting when you only have one book, though. So I can definitely empathize.
Yeah, I had it too when I started self-publishing, because I left my trade publisher to self-publish. A reason being I didn't like the treatment. Well, one of the reasons being I didn't like the treatment of the books and the covers, and they're there forever. And sometimes people happily tell me, "Oh, I bought your book," and they've actually bought that old version of the book instead of my new self-published one. But these things are outside our control. We just focus on what we can control and don't waste time and creative energy fretting about something that can't be done. But it's a very good question, because it's one that an awful lot of self-publishers come up against.
Yep, it's a rite of passage in many ways. Okay, so the next question, the next part of this is, okay, she's got a book up on Amazon that won't be removed. We've answered that. So the next question is, she wants to be sure that she's not wasting her money. So does it make sense to continue on with this book and rewrite it and republish it? Or should she just move on to the next project? And how should she know if she should move on to the next project?
It's a question for you. It's a hard question. I would, if I were in your position, I probably would rewrite and put it out under new covers, precisely because your publisher didn't do a great job. So you do a better job, and with your own cover, your own, plus you've got something to work with. So you've already got, okay, it's not a brilliant job, but it's arranged into chapters, it's had some form of editing, you know, so you're coming in at a stage of the process where a certain amount of the work has been done, so you can get practice in putting a book out and in marketing and promotion, because that's a, you know, very challenging part of the process as well. Then you can, as quickly as possible. So I wouldn't spend a huge amount of time on this first book, because it sounds like you're itching to get on to your next project, and that's great. So I would say have it definitely in your schedule to do it, whether you do it first or not. But definitely, I think, because it annoys you so much that poor version is out there, I think you should reclaim it and feel good about it, because presumably a huge amount of your creative energy has gone into that book already, and it would be a shame to just see it disappear.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, I would almost view this as low-hanging fruit, right? I mean, you've got a book that's done. Really, the only cost you're going to have to incur are the cost of the cover designer and the cost of the editor, and maybe a formatter if you don't have that skill. I would find the most cost-effective, not the cheapest maybe, but the most cost-effective editor, most cost-effective cover designer, and just get it out onto the market, and then start working on your next project. Because if you don't, it's gonna take up mental space, right? Because you're always going to be thinking, oh, I could have done this book, I could have done it. And how many writers are sitting on books that they've written that they don't proceed with, right? So you don't want that to be. Orna and I were just talking about this before we went live. You don't want this to be a trunk book, right? You've already put that time and effort into it. Just get it out there and then move on to the next project. It would be my advice, unless for whatever reason you are so burned out or you just can't pull yourself to work on the book for whatever personal reasons that might be. That's valid too. But if it were me, I would just go for it.
Yeah. And maybe if you are feeling that sort of way, there's a bit of kind of creative block around it, if you like. One thing you could possibly do is do the first draft of the next project, especially if it's an idea you're burning to kind of get going on. Do the first draft, then tell yourself, as soon as this first draft is finished, I'm going back to the old one. So you do the production then on the old one, and then go back and do your rewrites on the new one. And before you know where you are, you'll have 2 books on the market. Yep.
Good old alternating.
Good old alternating. Absolutely. Yeah, that's my process. And I think a lot of people's is, don't publish when you've just finished your first draft. Put it away and go back to the previous book, publish that one, then look at the first draft in the cool light of day, having produced a different one with a whole different, and you can kind of go back to it then and read it as a reader reads it. When you've just finished your first draft, you're just a bit kind of either in love or in hate with it. You're emotional anyway. You're not in the right state for production and publishing.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so our next question is from Stephen, and he's asking a very specific question here. So there's a specific question and there's a more broad question. So what is your opinion on Elite Authors? They are a self-publishing company and claim to have worked with CreateSpace in the past. CreateSpace had published a few of my novels, and I'm searching for a self-publishing company to provide cover design, interior formatting, and so forth on my books. Should I consider this company or should I consider someone else? So the question is, what's ALLi's opinion on Elite Authors? And then the broader question is, what's ALLi's opinion on different service providers for self-publishers?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment personally on Elite Authors. Our watchdog desk is the part of ALLi that kind of looks at the various self-publishing services that are available out there, and they are rated on our self-publishing advice center. So you can look up any service that you come across there. It's selfpublishingadvice.org/ratings. You can go to that list and see on the list there's caution list, approved ratings are partner members, which I'll come to in a moment. And so you can get an idea of what a particular service is like. And if they're not there, if any service is not on that list, it's a matter of just contacting John at allianceindependentauthors.org, and he will put it on the list for review. So that's a service that we kind of provide to the wider indie community. You don't have to be a member to tap into that. So have a look there is the first thing. But secondly, I would really recommend that you think about what you're doing here. So elite authors say that they have worked with CreateSpace in the past. Well, CreateSpace is now gone and it's now called KDP Print, but everybody who produces a print-on-demand book for Amazon has worked with CreateSpace. So that's not an exclusive thing to do or anything that's, particularly valuable. There's no great value in that for you. You can work with them directly yourself. You wish to hire a service to look after the editorial and the design. That's very understandable. And there are a range of services that do that. And we have a number of approved partner members who are good people to work with if you feel that you don't have the time or the energy to do these things yourself. However, in order to maximize your control and your return, the best way to self-publish is actually to hire your own help and to put the book up yourself on KDP for the Amazon ecosystem, on Ingram Spark for the wider print system, and on perhaps Drafted Digital, Publish Drive, or going directly also to Kobo, to Google, and to some of the other big players, Apple and so on. Which choice you make there is going to depend very much on which is more valuable to you, time or money. So if you feel that you don't have time, or you don't have the will or the creative desire to do it yourself and to hire your own help, then yes, you can find a good service in our partner directory, which you can download in the member zone. And I'd also recommend that you read this book here, which is, can we see that there? Choosing a self-publishing service. Again, by John Doppler, who runs the Watchdog Desk. It will give you everything you need, essentially, all the advice you need in terms of how to choose the service that's right for you. So how to evaluate where you are as a self-publisher, whether taking on a full service partner is the right thing for you, or whether you haven't just considered your options enough. All your options are outlined in this book. And also lots of services are rated in this book as well. So I would recommend you to read it. For members, again, it's freely downloadable in the member zone. So you can get it there. And then if any non-members are listening and they don't, they're not a member of ALLi and don't wish to be, you can purchase the book online.
Okay. Great. Nice, robust answer to that. So our next question is from E.S. Lewis. And her question, or maybe his or her, sorry, I don't know if it's listed as a male or female, so sorry about that. The question is, how can I update my book's cover and synopsis on ALLi? So I presume they have loaded their books into the member section of ALLi. How do you update?
You just edit your profile. It should be simple. So if you run into any problems with your profile, just email Philip at allianceindependentauthors.org. But it should be a very simple matter to remove books, add books, change all your information. And yeah. Okay.
All right. So we have a question from Ben, and it was pretty much the exact same question that Stephen asked about vetting services. So we'll skip that question. The next question is from Joe, and it is, I had my first book copyrighted in 2015, but wanted to add a few illustrations and reviews. Neither are totally accomplished yet, and I want to add a few more sentences to the book before publishing. Do I need to copyright the book again? So the question is, if I make a change to my book, do I need to register another copyright for it?
Another great question that a lot of people come up against. Not for small changes like the ones you've mentioned there, no. I think the guiding, there is no strict rule here. but there is a sort of guiding rule of thumb that 10 to 15% is okay within, you know, anything over 10% of the book. If you're changing it, that kind of becomes a new edition. But if you're just correcting typos, adding reviews, changing the cover, there is no need to change the ISBN and all the hassle that kind of goes with that. The copyright to the book will remain the year that you first published it. So, you know, if you find yourself making massive changes some years on, then you might indeed want to upload a new version of that book and let the old one kind of sit there for posterity. But for the kinds of changes you're talking about there, no need at all. Just make your changes. And indies do this all the time. So when they get good reviews, good endorsements, they put them in. If a cover's not working, they'll change it. You know, this is one of the advantages of self-publishing, doing your own self-publishing with your own people, is that it's relatively easy to hop on and make those kinds of changes whenever you need to.
Yeah, I agree. You know, in this example, you probably don't need to copyright it again. Like I said, I think Orna's advice is sound, 10 to 15%, as long as the book is not substantially different when you're done with it. But in the case of our earlier question, Michelle had asked the question, she's thinking about rewriting her book and getting it re-edited. That's probably a situation where you might consider recopywriting your book, because when you're done with it, the book is probably going to be substantially different, right? So those are just, you know, just connect some dots. Those are two examples when you would almost same question, but you would answer it differently based on what both authors are doing. So I hope that gives some color to it.
Yeah, I think that sort of subtlety is very important, and very often for indie authors there is that kind of subtle distinction. That's why, you know, in this business there are very few clear rules. So there may even be a scenario where somebody has changed more than 10%, but essentially it's the same book. You know, they've done quite a bit of tidying up on chapters or something, but essentially the book is not that different, and so they'll feel okay about it. There's also a distinction to be drawn between the copyright and the publishing. So this traditionally, copyright was kind of registered on the moment of publication by your trade publisher. That's how it happens in the traditional system. But John Doppler and I were talking about this during the week, and he was saying that actually your copyright protection begins from the moment you write the end. And so again, here is, you know, a sort of a gray area. I was saying to him, you know, the moment I write the end is really for me just the beginning. I edit and edit and edit and edit. So it's quite a different beast at the end of the day. But you might copyright the book to you, the author, on the year where you feel the book was actually finished. I've always followed the convention of the copyright being the moment of publication, because that's what I was used to. I didn't think about it, I just did it. So this is something that we'll be thinking and talking about a little bit more and kind of strip down into it. Copyright in the US is handled quite differently to everywhere else. Here in the UK and in many European countries and other countries around the world, there is no need to register copyright. Copyright just happens. It's just a gift that's kind of given by the very act of putting pen to paper, by producing and creating something. In the US, the legal system is such that unless you can prove copyright in the event of a dispute, you know, in other words, you need to register that copyright in the US. I think that's pretty much the rule now. Would you agree, Michael, as our US ambassador?
Yeah, that's the rule, unfortunately. Good old American legal system. Can't do anything without having to sue somebody. But yeah, you have to register it with the Copyright Office, and if you don't register your work within a certain amount of time after publication, then there are certain damages or certain amounts of money that you can't claim. So that's why it's really important to publish or to register your copyright as soon as you publish the book, or as soon as you know you're going to publish it. And then also there's been some recent court cases where, you know, you can't even pursue someone for copyright infringement until your work has been registered and entered in by the Copyright Office. So it's pretty important, and that's some areas where we differ, you know, across the pond. But copyright, it's complex and it's difficult. So, just follow those best practices that Orna just talked about, and 9 times out of 10, you're going to be fine.
Absolutely.
All right. So our next question is from John. John is asking this question for his father, who is an ALLi member. And his father is 86 years old and has written his first book. And they've worked on the project together, and it's been great. But when they got to the distribution, they've been having some difficulties navigating the Ingram Spark waters. They're just trying to figure out what they need to do and what Ingram can do for them, and how do they navigate that? And is there a contact that, or a way that they can reach out if they have questions?
Yeah, that's great. Ingram, the Ingram platform, it has complexities. There is no doubt about that. And Ingram is actually in the middle of a 5-stage improvement of the indie author upload machine. Everything about it is essentially getting an overhaul. And on the 15th of November, actually, there'll be the first one's already gone through, and the second phase completes on November 15th, so it should get easier. However, the good thing about Ingram is that the support desk is really good, and definitely just contact Ingram Support Desk and they will help you through all sorts of challenges. They really are helpful. So that should work for you. If it doesn't, then just drop us a line at info@allianceindependentauthors.org. Tell us the nature of your problem, and we can hook you up with somebody who will definitely be able to help. But you should find the support desk as your first port of call is helpful. Our members speak very highly of it.
No, I agree. And I just have to give the member a shout out here. That's awesome. 86 years old, publishing your first book. I mean, that's really cool and really cool for you helping your dad do that. So just have to call that out. That is amazing.
Kudos, 100%. My 92-year-old cousin is just publishing his first book. I'm giving him a hand to do that, and has just started podcasting.
Wow.
So these are the times we are living in, folks.
Yep.
We've a huge number of members who have left one life behind, retired, and have started a whole new business and career as an indie author. And it's something you can do on and on, right up to the end of your life. So yeah, it's fantastic. And I think it's something we need to kind of see a bit more. The young, cool and trendies get a lot of, exposure and so on, but there are lots of older people working in the background, and all that life wisdom is now becoming available to everybody. And that's just a brilliant thing. I speak as an older person myself.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many emails I get on a regular basis from people who are over the age of, say, 70, who find my YouTube channel and write me to say, hey, thank you for this. I just think it's so cool. Like, there's just not enough being highlighted around that. So
yeah, another one for our blog, I think. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Do we want to answer one more question here?
Yeah, we'll take one final one. All
right. So this one is a quick one. This is from Bill. And Bill asks a similar question along the lines of children's book authors. But in this case, he's asking, I need a very short children's story illustrated. How do I begin searching for artists and illustrators?
Well, again, you'll find them, Bill, in the directory. We have a number of great illustrators in the member directory. So make that your first port of call, because they've all been vetted by the Watchdog Desk. They've all been used by other authors. However, having said all of that, and with no disrespect whatsoever to our wonderful illustrators, illustration's very, very personal. So they may not be the right ones for you. And the thing about illustration is you've got to get somebody who speaks to the heart and soul of the book, whatever that is. So I think you really do begin with a Google search and put in some keywords of what you feel you want those illustrations to encompass. What is the value, if you like, that you want? So do you, are they going to be inspirational? Are they going to be amusing? Are they going to be, whatever you want, effect you want the illustrations to have on the reader? So put in that keyword and illustrate freelance illustrators, see what comes up, scroll through the many hundreds and thousands of images that you're seeing, and make notes of some people whose work you like, go onto their website, look at some more of what they're doing, and do some reach out. So begin with the directory. You might just find somebody there that you love. Then I'm sure there are associations of illustrators as well, where you can go and see, work presented in a sort of a user-friendly manner. So between that lot, I think you should find somebody that you love.
Yeah, and then don't forget platforms like Upwork. I think People Per Hour, if that's still around, that's one I think that's used in the UK. So there are lots of different avenues. And a nice part about those two is that if you can actually post your job on those sites, and then the illustrators will come to you, and then you can interview them and figure out what's important to you and kind of weed through them a little bit more, as opposed to being a little bit more on the offensive. It's just a thought. It's one avenue that you could go through, and it's a way that you could find a bunch of illustrators fairly quickly. And Reedsy, I think, would be another place. I think they have illustrators there.
I'm sure they do, because
I'm sure they do.
They have everything that the author needs, so I'm quite sure they do. And again, all of Reedsy's people are approved, so that they've done that part of the job for you.
Yep, and they're high quality. All the folks I've seen on Reedsy are phenomenal. So there's just a couple more areas for you to pursue.
So hopefully that helped. Yeah. Okay, so I think that's it for today. We are all out of questions.
We are.
So next, we were talking before we came on that we'd like to do a themed Q&A for next time out, because it's NaNoWriMo month. It's November, and we know that lots of you are going to be putting together some fiction and some novels for NaNoWriMo. We thought it would be nice to focus our questions next month just specifically on production. So writing, for a change, because we don't very often cover writing questions. We tend to focus on the publishing mostly. Writing and the production end of the publishing process. So editorial, but particularly illustration, cover design, all that kind of stuff. So getting the book out. What Michael and I were saying was that a lot of people for NaNoWriMo, you do it, you're carried along by the fantastic thing that is NaNoWriMo. And for those of you who don't know what it is, Michael's going to explain in a second. But then at the end of that month of November, often those manuscripts go into a drawer or a trunk, and then the holidays come and it can be forgotten. So we'd like to help to ensure that maybe it's a good thing to rest it during the holidays, as we were saying, but that they get taken back out early in the new year and actually turned into books, not just left as typescripts on your computer or whatever. Yeah,
friends don't let friends put their manuscripts in a trunk, right? Exactly. So that's where NaNoWriMo came from. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month for short. It began as an effort for people to come together and sit down and write a novel in 30 days, right? And so it's become something of a phenomenon, and it's now a nonprofit organization. And every year in November and in July, they have Camp Nano too. People all over the world start writing novels to try to finish a novel in 30 days, right? So on November 1st, you sit down and you start writing. And if you write, I think it's like 1,666 something words per day, by November 30th, you should have a completed manuscript, assuming you write 50,000 word novels. If you write doorstop fantasy, then you're gonna have to write a lot more to get to that number. But it's a great initiative. When I first started, I wrote my first book during NaNoWriMo. It's just a great way to start. If you're an aspiring writer, it's a great way to light that fire. And if you've got a few books under your belt, I still think it's a phenomenal time to sit down and be disciplined and be intentional about getting a book out into the world. And so NaNoWriMo is a great time. You'll see lots of things on Twitter, see lots of things on YouTube. And so it'll be a really great episode for you to ask all of your NaNoWriMo related questions. How do you draft? How do you edit? What kind of editorial decisions should you be making? Anything is fair game. If it relates to writing a novel, even if you're not participating in NaNoWriMo, feel free to still ask any of those writing questions, and we will answer them.
Fantastic. That's brilliant. I look forward to that, and completely agree with you about NaNoWriMo. It's fantastic. We know we have lots of members who wait until November because you get such uplift from the fact that so many people are doing this all together, and you can kind of tap into that as much or as little as you want. It's completely up to you, and it's just, so many novels have seen the light of day because of NaNoWriMo. So many people now have an indie author career because of NaNoWriMo. So yeah, we're great friends. We love what they do, and would encourage you have 2 weeks to prep. I don't think it's a good idea to sit down on the 1st of November with no idea of what you're going to write and just try and write a novel. But we have had people who've done that, and surprisingly, the creative wind can capture, you never know in this world, but you do have 2 weeks to map out what you would write, what you'd write each day of the month of November, and then try and keep to that. So
if you're can I make a plug?
Yes, totally.
So to prep for the 2 weeks, right? I have another podcast. It's called Writing Tip of the Day. It's available on your Amazon Alexa devices and on all the podcast networks. And that's actually what we're doing for these next 2 weeks. It's Monday through Friday, a writing tip every day. October 15th through November 1st, I'm giving you a tip every day to help you prep for NaNoWriMo so that you can actually hit the ground running on November 1st. So you can find that at...
Brilliant. I didn't know. Say it again. Say it again where they find it.
Writing Tip of the Day, authorlevelup.com/writing tip of the day.
Brilliant.
So check it out, subscribe, and it'll get you ready.
Do check it out. Michael's YouTube channel is Author Level Up, and there's just so much there. And then /writing tip of the day for that. Specifically, and all of those addresses and links and things will be in the show notes for this show, which will go out on our selfpublishingadvice.org blog on Wednesday next as a podcast in audio. So look out next if you're interested in anything that we've mentioned here today. There'll also be a transcript of the questions. So, today what we do is we just meet up, have this chat online on Facebook Live, but actually it goes out in a much more formal way next Wednesday on the blog. So look out for that on selfpublishingadvice.org, and we'll have all the links there for you then. So thank you very much, Michael. As always, a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you, Orna. Talk to you next month.
Okay, take care. Happy writing. Are you NaNoWriMoing?
Every month for me is NaNoWriMo.
Oh, good answer. Good answer. All right then. Happy writing and happy publishing to everyone. Bye-bye.